right, welcome back to the Purpose Odyssey. This is our 6th episode now, and we have a very special guest with us today. This is Joo, and we have been living with you for about, is it 3 weeks now?
It's nearly 3 weeks.
3 weeks, yeah, and it's been awesome. I've had a lot of time to kind of rest. As most of y'all have probably noticed, we haven't uploaded a podcast in about 3 weeks now, and I think that's because we had a lot of growing to do, and a lot of that growth I feel like is because of meeting Joo. I feel like you enabled a lot of that space for us. So if you'd like to introduce yourself a little bit, I would love that.
Okay. Yeah. Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course.
And so we met here in Colombia. Mm-hmm. This is a volunteering episode with our journey. Mm-hmm. And I was born in South Korea. Mm-hmm. And then adopted in Switzerland. I left Switzerland last year in June because I wanted to create a healing center upstate New York. Unfortunately, or fortunately, however you look at it, it didn't work out. And I started just going on a journey, basically to find a new spot. And it took me like really amazing places. I met a lot of beautiful people and souls, and I traveled through Canada and America, and somehow ended up in Latin America.
Yeah, that happens.
Right, it just happens, and it's beautiful to see how many different kind of human of all walks of life, doing the same thing, and also different, generations. Like me being a generation ahead of you.
Yeah.
But we all found each other in the same spot.
It is interesting.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's why I love my life, right?
Yeah, for sure. No, and it's, for some background, we're currently in Venecia, Colombia. Zach and I came here about 3 weeks ago. Joo came about 2 days after, I guess. And right away, we've just felt very connected. At least me and Zach did. Like, right when you walked in a room, I swear you can feel the energy lighten, I feel like. And me and Zach were kind of waiting for that kind of presence. So that was really awesome that you ended up coming in. So just some background, you said that you were a banker for a while, right?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
That old life. Yeah. So in Switzerland, as everyone knows, it's pharma, banking, and watches and chocolate.
Chocolate. I love the chocolate.
I think that's what Switzerland's known for, right?
Yeah.
So when you grow up in Switzerland, all is about what is going to be your career, which of those avenues you're going to go down. Mm-hmm. And I never felt really connected to banking, but it just happened that I got into it like after working in a actually forwarding company. Oh. Yeah. So I don't even remember how I ended up working for an American stock company.
Yeah.
And I thought it was interesting. Don't get me wrong. I mean, banking is very fascinating in some ways, but spending more than 20 years in banking.
More than 20 years?
Yeah.
I had no idea.
It was more than 20 years, yes.
Wow.
I felt so drained, and the environment is toxic. It's all about, money and how can they generate more profit out of stupid products. I mean, they just create products that don't make sense.
The bank. This might sound dumb, but I didn't know the bank had products.
They create their own products.
Like
if you hear like, options trading, options are, byproducts from a stock. Mm-hmm. So if they cannot make enough money from stocks, they just create options out of it, right? So it's
That's terrifying.
Yeah, it is terrifying. And at some point you just see it's like that doesn't make sense. But it makes sense to the bank because whatever they do, remember, whether the client loses money or makes money, they always make money. It doesn't matter what the client ends up with. The bank always makes money.
That's terrifying.
Yeah. And when I realized that, it's kind of like, that's wrong.
Yeah.
I don't want to be part of this anymore.
Yeah.
So it was 2019. 2019, after I had a burnout, I had a depression, I couldn't work anymore. So I still went back after my break, and I realized, no, this is just making me sick again.
Yeah.
So May 2019, I walked out of the bank and said, never again.
Yeah.
And that was it.
Was there like a specific turning point that got you there? Like, was there an event that finally made you like,
I guess it was my depression.
It was your depression.
Because I always thought that maybe I was just, not strong enough. It's that the part of you that just, which is ego-driven, right? It's like, well, you're just not strong enough. Look at the others; they can make it. You know, they keep coming back, and then you think like, okay, you failed, and then you start over again, and you end up always at the same point.
Yeah.
And was said like, I can't live like this,
Yeah.
Even if I was 46 back then. It's like I'm too young to carry on with this life for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
There's still a lot of life ahead of me, which makes it worth changing.
100%.
Yeah, and also for my sons. I mean, I was like, they don't deserve a mother being so miserable,
Yeah.
I was like, they need to see me for who I truly are, and not for what they've been presented so far. Because I think for all that time I worked in banking, that was just a mask I was carrying, and the mask got heavier and heavier until the point it was too heavy to carry.
Yeah. I also think it's just important, like with having sons or children, seeing a role model in your life that actually went after something that made them happy. Like that's super important, because a lot of kids nowadays, it's just getting told you have to make this much money to be successful, you have to have this security blanket. But having a role model that actually chased something that made them happy and being told that's what's important, like that is extremely amazing, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, so my eldest, unfortunately, didn't experience that because until I changed my whole life, he actually just gave up on me, which I totally understand, because obviously he was much older than his brother, and he was emotionally not. I think not just he couldn't bear it anymore to watch me.
Okay.
Honestly.
Yeah.
And I hope one day he can see that I tried my best.
Yeah.
I think whatever every mother tries, but just he didn't experience my change. But my younger son, the little one, I was always open with him. I always openly and transparently communicated with him what I'm going through.
Yeah.
And with doing that itself, really made him being a lot more understanding.
Yeah.
And not always try to play the strong one. So show him that vulnerability is very important.
Oh yeah.
And he's totally supported what I'm doing right now.
I was gonna ask that.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It was funny. Just like before I came to Colombia, I had this video call with him, and he was struggling with his father. It was an issue with his father, and I said, like, look, okay, I'm coming back. I can't watch or not watch where this is going. And after the conversation, he sent me this WhatsApp saying, Mom, I want you to chase your dreams because you never could, and I'm fine. Don't come back. I'll be fine.
Really?
And that just showed me that maybe I've done something right.
Yeah, for sure you're doing something right. Yeah.
But basically, he totally supports it, and I said, look, I can manage. Daddy has his moments, but I would think it would be sad if you've come so far now.
Yeah.
Just come back and drop that thing you were chasing. He wouldn't feel comfortable with that either. So he was very compassionate, but also obviously, as you say, it's like it was important for him to see that I'm not giving up now.
Yeah.
So that's
100%.
I think that's probably giving him the courage to maybe not even start that path of redefining success, right? It's a lot about what is success really.
Yeah.
It's not always money.
Oh, no.
It's probably money. I think money comes into success stories when you don't have a passion.
Yeah.
Right? When you lack passion, when you lack the courage to find your passion, then money becomes very important.
Yeah.
But it will be never able to replace your passion.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
well, can I ask then, so what is it that you're chasing now? Like, what is your, I guess not career, but what is it, the purpose that you're trying to fill right now through traveling?
So what I would call it mission.
Yeah,
So my mission is really the healing center. I know I will have that healing center. Right now it's more about where it's going to be.
Okay.
Because I know I want it on a farmland. I want to, have growing vegetables, fruits, just I think the right diet is very important for healing.
100%.
Because all the processed food actually can affect your health in a way that it affects your mental health too, right? So I think it's coming full cycle again with nature. I think we need to go back to nature, and the healing is in nature.
Yeah.
There's a lot. I mean, we don't need medication or anything, produced in a lab. Mother Nature provides everything to us.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Me and Zach, eventually, I don't even know if I've said this on the podcast before, but we want something similar, but not exactly. But I feel like we believe community is missing a lot. And just, even if we can create these spaces where it's not just a single family household, but being able to create, like, I don't know if commune is the right word, but spaces for multi-families to share, like, a garden and then different livestock, and just being able to have just one, I guess, source communally, I think that would be lovely. So I didn't realize that you were trying to start, like, a holistic center. Is it like a space for people to come visit or to live?
So it'll be different aspects to it, right? So one part is definitely the PTSD healing center, where I want to work with equine, which is healing with horses.
Yeah,
right.
That's lovely.
So that will be for adults. Then also a special healing center for children, traumatized children. And also finding them new homes, because a lot of children are just abandoned, and the parents really are overwhelmed mostly and struggling with being a parent. So offering those children, first of all, healing, and then new families. And then the third part will be really for anyone that wants to heal and ascend. In a sense of finding their life purpose, right?
Yeah.
So it'll be split up in like 3 main sections.
Yeah.
But also like the whole community, as in like gardening and providing for the community. So there's probably going to be a lot of people passing through it.
Yeah.
And see where it goes, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
sounds amazing.
That's the idea.
Yeah, I had no idea you were trying to start that. I didn't know if you were doing like a traveling thing through your healing, but that sounds amazing.
I think right now the traveling really gives me more definition to it.
Yeah.
So with everyone who I meet, every human being I meet, always gives me certain feedback, right? So when I have sessions with clients, it's not only healing for them, but it's healing for me too.
Yeah.
It's always both ways. And I appreciate everyone that seeks out, finding me, and because I can learn so much too.
Yeah.
It's I don't have all the truth and the wisdom, but
it feels like you do sometimes.
No, believe me, no. I might have a lot, but not all of it.
Of
but
course.
What I can say on my journey so far, I learned as much through my clients as they probably learned from me.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's pretty cool. So when did you decide to start traveling?
So I wanted to start off in 2020, but then COVID hit. Right?
Okay, of course, yeah.
And as I didn't believe in the vaccine, for many reasons, I was stuck in Switzerland.
Okay.
But also did I realize that I wouldn't have been ready, actually. That's like going
Funny how
back,
that
like
works.
so being impatient, right? But then realizing, maybe I wasn't ready.
Yeah.
And also my younger son was obviously quite younger, so I wouldn't have felt actually comfortable in leaving him with his father at this point.
Yeah.
So everything always turns out perfectly, even though we don't see it sometimes.
Yes.
Right.
But
The mission itself, it's something that kind of like came together bit by bit. Right. So first of all, I was always into helping human beings. So I remember even back in kindergarten, my kindergarten teacher said, like, I was always worried about everyone.
Oh.
So, we had one boy, I remember, he was so cute. So he was slightly, he was very slow in learning.
Okay.
So, and when the break was coming up, the ones that could tie their shoes the quickest were out in the break area the first.
Yeah.
And I always felt so sorry for him because
Is this when you were in kindergarten?
Yes.
Okay.
So I always felt sorry for him because he was always the last. When I realized that, I would run out, grab him, set him down, and tie his shoelaces so he could be one of the first ones, right?
Oh, yeah.
And my kindergarten teacher told my mom's like she never saw something like that. I would like really make sure that he was one of the first. And always been like that. I would always go for the weak people in a group. It's like, I need to help them.
Interesting.
And also in my working experience in the bank, I was always the one helping, the one that, were struggling with something. It was for me a lot more important than, shining on my own. That never really appealed to me. So for me, it was a successful day was if I could help someone, I think. I was always like that. Yeah.
Did you, when you were a kid, did you have something that you wanted to do? Like, I'm guessing you weren't sitting there at like age 5 being like, I want to be a banker. Like,
oh, no. No,
okay,
no,
that's
no.
what I figured. Did you have like some kind of vision or like even just something simple that you wanted to be when you grew up?
So when I was very young, that was
Sorry, I love that laugh.
my mom would ask like, what do you want to be one day?
Yeah.
And I said, well, either a princess or a mother.
Wait, same thing, a princess or a mother.
Yes.
That's interesting.
Well, I'm a mother.
Yeah, you
I
are.
guess a princess is not for this lifetime.
I mean, it depends. Like, you never know what could happen. A princess or a mother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I was always very interested in crafting.
Okay.
So, I don't know, whatever, I will find stuff and just make something out of it. And then cooking, obviously, I love the cooking. So I was always in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Then once I really could imagine to be a farmer's wife.
Interesting.
Yeah, I love, I grew up across the street of a farm.
Ah, got it.
And every free minute I would just go over there and spend time with the farmer's wife.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, so I really loved that. And it was hairdresser and makeup artist and tailor, as like florist.
So yeah, everything.
Never bank. Never the bank, right?
Yeah.
And then I got into, and then my age, when it was really big in Switzerland to be in the commercial field. So I would just go my apprenticeship. I didn't want to go to university. I wanted to be independent.
Yeah.
So I thought, like, as being a student, you're not very independent.
No.
So I decided for apprenticeship, but in the commercial field. And
when
then,
you say commercial field, what do you mean by that? Sorry.
well, it's like so in Switzerland, apprenticeship, so a company would take you on, and you would work 3 days and go to school 2 days.
Oh, okay.
And that's what they call commercial.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
And then that was a forwarding company, air freight and sea freight.
Okay.
That wasn't me at all, but it was just, you've done something, you got one certificate and then you can always see what you do next, right? But the basic education was good. It was law, it was accounting, all that stuff that's useful, right?
Yeah.
For life. And then after that, I just didn't know what to do. I was like, okay. So I decided to go to America as an au pair.
Oh, I didn't know you were an au pair, too,
Yes.
in the United States.
Yeah, in Houston.
In Houston, okay.
Wasn't much fun there, honestly. I didn't enjoy
You
it.
didn't love Houston.
And the family was just weird.
Really?
Yeah.
Why was it weird? I don't know if you can explain that.
Oh, I don't mind,
Okay.
So they were very religious in a weird way.
Okay.
So basically, I wasn't allowed to drink a beer in the house, but out front, I could.
Interesting.
Or smoking cigarettes. It's like, go for a walk. All that kind of silly thing.
Yeah.
And then the dad, he was just, touching me in moments that wasn't right. So I said like, okay, no, this is not me.
No.
After 3 months, I said, I want to go home.
Okay.
And I just was looking for a part-time job because I was thinking about doing different education. Wasn't quite sure about what, but so I was looking for a part-time job, and it happened to be an American stockbroker.
That's
And that's how
such a huge thing. Like, I feel like people in the United States would have such a hard time finding that job, and you're just like, I was just looking for a part-time job. That's like the American dream.
I was like, okay, why not? Give it
Yeah,
a shot,
sure.
right?
An American stockbroker. So you were in Switzerland at this point. You came back to Switzerland.
Yes.
Okay, and you just happened to find the American stockbroker part-time job.
Exactly.
Okay, go on.
So I was like the afternoon shift. So back then it was still, hacking all the orders into a system and then wait for the executions to come out. I had no idea when I started there what it was all about.
Yeah.
But funny enough, I found the creativity I really was after in the numbers.
Interesting. The
And
numbers. So it allows creativity in some ways. Okay.
Exactly. I kind of like found it very creative. Like, well, they were very creative in creating all these products, which had no
like
value actually. Right?
So yeah, I guess that would be creative, huh?
Yes.
Who knew?
Yeah, and then from there, I learned a lot about the stock market. But then I was more interested in where the data come from, right?
Oh, okay.
It's like so-called market data.
Yeah.
So I ran on to Reuters.
Okay.
So they were probably the monopolist back then with market data. So that's really the intro. So it's all the data from the different stock markets collected, and they took that data and produced information for banks and hedge funds and all all these big financial institutions.
Okay.
And news, right? News, Reuters news is big, right?
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay.
So I was there back in the back office, responsible for administration and contracts.
I cannot fathom you in that position.
No.
That's so interesting. Okay, administration and
So
contracts.
I learned a lot about law, international law.
Yeah.
And then I was hired by, so we had 3 big banks in Switzerland. So that was back then Credit Suisse, UBS, and SPC. And SPC went bankrupt and then merged with UBS. So they took on a huge, they were already very big, but then they became the biggest. So you got now the UBS and Credit Suisse. And what happened? UBS took over Credit Suisse.
Of course.
So there's a trend going on right now that the financial system is breaking down.
A little bit.
Yes.
Yeah.
And these are the signs now, right?
Is that a worldwide thing? Or
It's
is
worldwide.
It just, okay.
Well, it's so we need to understand that the banking system is one system that is controlled by one group of people, and that's worldwide, that's global.
That's terrifying.
Whatever happens, it doesn't matter which market it is, it's all connected back to the center, which is the City of London and not London City. So City of London is the square mile within London City that is not part of London, which is its own state.
Oh.
And that's where the global financial market is ruled by. It's in that little square mile.
That's weird. The whole world market goes back to this little square in London, and it's its own state, you're saying?
It's its own state.
Okay.
Yes.
That's interesting.
It's like the Vatican is its own state, right?
That's weird.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
do you have any, what makes you say that it's about to fall apart?
So basically let's call it the universe. I don't want to go into religion. So the universe is built in a certain way. There's certain rules that you cannot avoid nor work around. And if you do that for a certain number of years or time, it'll break down. It has to break down, right? So that whole financial system that's been created back in time by the Knights Templar is so corrupt now that they basically took the wealth away from people like you and me.
Yeah.
They were trading our souls over thousands of years and made money with our souls. It sounds weird, but that's what happened, right?
Interesting.
That's why we have a birth certificate. That birth certificate is what they trade.
Wait, what? Wait, like actually? Like
They trade,
do?
yes.
What do you mean they trade it?
So basically, with your birth certificate, you're registered
Yeah.
with the government. And the government, I mean, we're all taxpayers. That's how government makes money.
Yeah.
So basically, they trade with our work we do in the background. So it's very complex. It would be too complex to explain it here.
Yeah.
But it's a fact. So basically, they took the wealth away from us.
Okay.
And that's not what the universe is about, because the universe believes that everyone is abundant, right? And so these old systems are now really due to break down, and that's why you see, all these financial institution, bankrupt.
Yeah.
Right, they're going bankrupt. Also, all these super rich people starting to sell their wealth. This is because they lost their money. They're not owning that kind of money anymore, as we believe. It's all zero out. Basically, it went back to default, which is zero now for them, and that's why you hear a lot more like, oh, they're getting rid of this. The stock market is really trembling, right?
Yeah.
It's everyone's losing money now, or the whole fiasco with the Bitcoin last year, right? This is because there's no value anymore. There's no value on those products.
Yeah.
Because
I never understood that, the whole Bitcoin thing. I don't understand how it just came out of nowhere and now it's worth. Like, is that just like a made up product?
Yes.
Then?
And everyone who believes, it's always the what's the demand, right? And that defines the price.
Yeah.
So if you can hype something up, and a huge collective starts believing in the value,
Then it,
right, and it gains value, but there's no value against it. Like, for instance, if you had the dollar, like back in time, the value was backed up by gold. But it's not the case anymore.
No.
The money they print has no value. But you, as a hard worker, or everyone who works and pays taxes, that money has value.
Yeah.
Right? And they exchange their valueless printed money with the money you make in tax money. So they give us nothing and take everything from us.
Cool.
And when I realized that in what the bank is doing, it's like, this is not, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
It just made me feel sick.
Do you think that's what your depression stemmed from?
Yes.
Okay. I didn't know if it was like, what was the cause and effect? Like the depression was leading you further away from banking, or banking was causing the depression, but you think it was that?
It's really the inner knowing, right? Maybe not consciously, but subconsciously knowing that this is wrong. Yeah. Right, and you can feel it's wrong.
Yeah.
Sometimes I would sit in a meeting with all these so smart people talking, and I thought, like, this is bullshit.
Yeah.
Right, but then you think like, oh, he's got 2 masters in whatever, and this guy is a doctor in a PhD, and so you think like they need to know, they need to do the right thing, but it's all empty words.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you have any advice for someone that's starting to get that feeling of just like knowing they're in the wrong place? Because I guess I'll just say relatives that are in their 50s, or not even relatives, but friends of parents, like everyone. I just keep hearing this back. I have quite a large audience in that age range, and I just keep hearing that it feels too late to change career. That's what I feel like, because I feel like it's not that late in the game. Like, you're still young.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm 52, right?
Yeah.
And so what I think, even if it's one day of your life, you do the right thing for yourself. it's worth it.
Yeah.
Right?
100%.
Even if I would die tomorrow, it was all worth it.
Yeah.
To come to that realization that if you really follow your heart, so it can be only right.
Yeah.
And anything else is just wrong. You know.
Yeah.
And it's the fear, right? So I'm sure, you know, you pay into pension, you think you're going to lose it whatsoever. Well, the pension system that exists now, you won't have that money.
Yeah.
That money is gone. It's non-existing, you know. And it's not there. It's a number on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
Right. And it's taken away like this. Like with the Bitcoin, you know, people thought like I got these millions.
Yeah.
And the next moment it was gone. And that's the same going to happen with the pension money.
Yeah.
So so I always say, what would you do if money wasn't a question, right?
Yeah.
And then when you find that thing you would do, build on that, and it will generate money, and it will generate abundance in different ways, because you can be abundant not receiving money,
Yeah.
but you can be abundant in many different ways. So for me, it was like, you know, I made good money. I mean, I was a freelancer the last few years. I worked in the banks, so I
Yeah.
wasn't permanent staff anymore. I thought like that might help me, but it didn't. But still, so I made good money, but it didn't matter how much money I made. It
Yeah.
was like I was chasing something that money couldn't buy me, right?
Yeah.
And mostly it's really that part of yourself that wasn't aware. You were never aware your whole life. It's that's the void in you.
Yeah.
But the void you can't feel from external. That's only coming from within. And also, you know, it's about what do you really need to live, right? So obviously have enough money to eat,
Yes.
you know, and
Yeah.
have a home. But then again as well, I used to live in a bigger apartment, which was very expensive. I was like, do I really need that?
Yeah.
Most of the space I didn't need,
No.
right?
No.
So really think about what do you need to live,
Yeah.
right? And also it's like so much asset. So a lot of asset you have actually is not asset. It's really, it costs you money.
Yeah.
You know, a house you own, it's a mortgage on it, right? You pay mortgage every month.
Yeah.
So that's a pressure there, right there you have, right? And you don't know when you die. So you paid all that time for a mortgage, and then what happens after you die? You don't know,
Yeah.
right? It's just, you don't know.
Yeah.
So it's not worth it. So whoever is in this situation, I would really ask yourself, what is it what I would love doing, and then take it from there.
Yeah. Do you have any advice for people that don't exactly know what it is they love doing? Like, I know when people come to me with that, I often tell them, at least from my perspective, what helped me was thinking back to childhood and first whatever you loved, whatever got you energized. I always say try to just re-implement that thing and see if you still get that feeling. Do you have any advice for figuring out what it is?
Well, that's a very good thing, right?
Okay.
Because as children, when we're still a child, we're so much more connected actually to our soul.
Yeah.
So that's a very good way to do it.
Okay.
The other thing is, and that sounds now a bit scary for most, but usually your passion is behind the biggest fear.
You said that to me, and I have not explored that at all, and I'm kind of curious, like, what... Do you have, like, an example of that?
So the way it worked for me, so my whole
Yeah.
life, so I'm an adoptee from South Korea, right?
Yeah.
So for me, unconditional love was not in the picture.
Okay.
So when I say that, I mean, so my birth parents, unconditioned, gave me away.
Yeah.
So there was no unconditional love. Then my adoptive parents adopted me based on conditions, right? And so when I was meditating, I was like, oh my God, I think I need to somehow incorporate that unconditional love. And what is it? Unconditional love means that you actually help people without conditions. All you want is someone to be on a journey of healing, on a journey of finding love to themselves, and through that finding the purpose in life, right?
Yeah.
And for me, it was really that journey of very conditional love brought me to that point where I had to learn to unconditionally love myself. And when I realized how I can unconditionally love myself is I can bring that to other human beings. And how do I do that? It's with healing, right? Through healing and the way I was healing. So, for instance, I always say fear actually means to lose something that you don't have yet. So that's why you fear a lot. That's why the fear comes in.
Yeah.
Because if you fear something, all it means that there's something you imagine that you want to have in life, but already fear to lose it.
That's interesting.
And that's why I'm saying it's behind your biggest fear.
That's a good way to put it. I've never thought of fear that way.
Yeah.
I'll have to think about that tonight. That's interesting. So do you feel like because you said unconditional love for yourself was first, do you feel like you've achieved that, the unconditional love for yourself? Because that seems like such a, at least for most people, I think that's such a hard thing to get to.
I think you never fully do that.
Okay.
It's like healing. You're never done in one lifetime, right?
Yeah.
So there are times, there are days, there definitely where I feel where I do feel I'm loving myself unconditionally, for sure.
Yeah.
But the moment maybe something's, not going the way I imagined it or hoped, then you do fall back into that old pattern of, oh, you're so stupid. Oh, you should have known better, right?
Yeah.
But what I can do at this point is really pull myself back then and say, okay, no, this is not what we do right now, right? So take this step back, just one step back, and it's like, okay, it didn't go the way you imagined it, but maybe it gives you a deeper insight of what you need to learn, because everything is a lesson, right? And so I get myself back to loving myself unconditionally a lot quicker than before.
That's what I always like to point out. I feel like a lot of people can get stuck because they don't think they're ever going to reach that perfection, but that's just not a thing for anyone.
No.
It's just the stronger you get at it, the quicker you can get back to that positive space.
Exactly.
But yeah, it's a never-ending cycle.
No, it's never ending. And we have the ego, right?
Yeah.
And ego is always here to check with you. He always checks, and usually checks in the moments you don't want it.
Yeah.
Right?
Can you explain ego a little bit? Because I have a lot of listeners that, for some, probably have never really even heard the concept exactly.
So the ego is that part in you that would come up to question you, right? But it's not always negative. I always say we need the ego. Also, the ego is that part in you that makes you survive. It's that instinct of survival, right? And on a bigger scale, so that's how I understand ego is the inversion of your soul. So we are in a binary world or universe, right? We got the minus and the plus. So if you see your soul as a plus and the ego as the minus, but we need both in balance, right? So being egoless is not good.
Okay.
Right? That would mean you're on the street and a car is driving towards you, and you go like, oh, I don't care. I'm just lying
you
here.
feel nothing.
Right?
It's just,
So being without an ego, no, it's not working in this dimension.
Because your higher self or your soul, as you're saying, you've told me before, it doesn't see any negative or positive in things. It just is.
Exactly.
So although that's good for some things, you do need to keep it in check at times, like you said.
Yeah.
So it's good to think, because I feel like I get stuck in that way of thinking, saying oh, I need to get rid of my ego. Oh, it's but no, that's not the thing.
A lot of people talk about ego death, and I'm not subscribing to that. No.
I love that. You're not subscribing to that?
No, I can.
Yeah.
It always felt like, why would you say that?
Yeah.
And it's probably what I think, to explain it better, and I think that's what the people mean is it's shedding your ego. It's more like so the best analogy I have is like you buy a new alarm system, right?
Yeah.
And you don't know how it works. you need to find out. So you have the alarm system on very high,
Oh, yeah.
right? And that's what I would call if someone has walls up, right? But then again, you realize it goes up with, you would hear the alarm with just an animal passing by or the wind blowing very hard, and that's annoying,
Yeah.
right? It's like you sit in the house and the alarm system goes off every 5 seconds, like, no, I can't live like this.
Yeah.
Right? So what you do is fine-tuning it until to the level where you feel protected but not annoyed
Yeah.
or hindered, right, in daily life. And that's what we do with the ego. I think that's really fine-tune the ego to the extent where you feel protected, safe within yourself, but also not hindered to walk forward in life, right?
Yeah. Do you feel like most people are walking around with like a way too high ego? Like, is that kind of like the natural state of like society right now? Yeah.
Yeah, because there's a lot of fear, right,
Yeah.
instilled in us, and they actually know that the ego is working for them. So the more fear they instill in us, the higher the ego is, and the more they can control us.
Okay.
Because if we all would be in this flow of, oh, I'm safe, I got everything I need, they couldn't control us.
Yeah.
Right? So that's fear. Just through fear, they can control us.
Okay. What advice would you have for someone that wants to kind of get connected with that part of them? Like get that in check a little bit, or like kind of, I guess, gauge where they're at with it if they're just hearing this concept of ego?
Well, it's in every moment the way you react to something. Is it like it's actually the word already said, when you react in a moment, it's ego. Because if you know you're safe and there's no fear, because fear is an illusion, then you would act in that moment. So being reactive means that the ego is driving you right now.
Yeah.
But if you're aware that the ego is driving you, then again, take that step back. It's like, okay, let me look at the situation, and maybe like weigh, oh, what's the negative part of this situation?
Yeah.
And is it really that negative?
Yeah.
Right? Because we see a lot of negativity, which actually is not. And this is just because of the ego.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I feel like everyone, just in general right now, it feels like everyone's going in a very just negative mindset about the world in general, which can be kind of scary because, at least from my own point of view, it can be scary to think that everyone's believing the world is headed in a very scary direction or a bad direction in terms of like climate change, political, war, everything. It's like, if everyone's thinking that way, wouldn't it kind of conceive that way because of manifestation?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly the collective energy, right?
Okay.
So when you just think about the collective energy, it does manifest exactly the negativity if you focus on negative things, right? But again, it's like, okay, yes, there is war. And there is a lot of control. But imagine nothing can change if we don't actually head towards this.
Yeah.
We will carry on. So the way we as human function is something has to get really, really bad in order for us to change.
That's
right?
sad.
It is sad,
Yeah.
but it is exactly what the collective does, right?
Yeah.
So many people still talking about the COVID, right?
Oh, COVID, yeah.
And people are still out there. It's like, why don't you get the vaccine and all that stuff? But now you hear a lot of death happening, sudden deaths. And I mean, as sad it is, but this death had to happen in order for the people to understand the vaccine wasn't as good as they think it was. So you cannot change your mindset unless you experience something even worse.
Yeah.
That's unfortunate like this,
Yeah.
right? And it was the same for me. It's like I changed my life around when I hit the rock bottom.
Yeah.
Right. And not before. I mean, I had the signs way before that, right? But I would just ignore it, right? And that's, I think, what I the hope I have in the new generation, that they don't follow just blindly those avenues anymore.
Yeah.
So unlike other people, I actually think that Gen Z is awesome.
So do I. Like, genuinely, even though I'm pretty much part of it, I still don't know which generation I am. But I feel like I have hope in this generation just because I've seen them turn down so many systems that people have blindly followed.
Yeah.
I think that's a big deal. And I think everyone should be excited about that. Like, I haven't seen people question, well, I've only been I've only been around for as long as Gen Z has. But it makes me feel empowered when I see other people in my generation doing that. And I think that's important. And I think it's a good sign. But I'm glad you said that, because I don't know if I really hear people from other other generations saying that. So I'm glad other people see it. That makes sense.
For me, I've seen a lot of positive things from Gen Z.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, there's always both, right?
100%. Yeah.
But the collective of the Gen Z is just basically saying, oh, fuck your old systems. We don't do this anymore.
It also just didn't work for us.
No.
Like, we have no hope for housing. We have no hope for a lot of the things. When we were told to go to college, now all of a sudden it doesn't help you get a job. And they wanted people with apprenticeships. And it's like, okay, what are we supposed to do? So the old system just simply did not work for us, as most of you listening probably know already. So yeah, that's probably is why. I don't know what that's going to mean for the future, but I feel like something will happen within this generation. I'm not sure what.
Well, just look at the new jobs they created.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, influencer, you know. Who would
I
have
still don't know
thought?
what that means. Like, yeah, it's people just living their daily lives.
Yeah,
just
right.
like posting. Yeah.
I guess the influencers are really like those people that are online and can actually bring change through the way they live life.
Yeah.
You know, and show other people you can have a different life and still make money and still have a career, right? And so that wasn't a job like 10 years, even 10 years ago, it would have been hard, you know, to understand influencer.
No, that's crazy.
Or just all these new, you know, internet based jobs you can have. Who would have thought that you can just sit on your computer and make money, right?
Yeah.
That was a concept when I was choosing what to do with my life that wasn't even there, right? And so I think it's not fair to just say Gen Z is useless. I mean, they created a lot of good things, right?
Yeah, for sure. No, and even just the idea of like remote work now is like a huge thing, and people demanding it almost. So that's really good too. But yeah, there's a lot of things that I think are shifting. I'm just hoping they keep going that direction. All right, we're just going to do a quick time out real quick now that we're halfway through the episode. I just wanted to remind everybody to please subscribe to our podcast on any listening platform that you're on. As well as that, please rate us 5 stars. That helps us out a ton. It just gets access to more people. The more ratings we have, the more subscribers we have, the more the platforms advertise us to our listeners. Along with that, we do have our website if y'all want to check it out. It is purposeodyssey.com. There's no longer a dot in the middle. It is just Purpose Odyssey, the words, which I'm really excited about. It's a big deal for me. There you can find all of the stories about our travels. We have blog posts on there. We have links to our YouTube channel where we do weekly travel vlogs, which we're going to kind of revamp soon, actually. And then finally, we also have a store that I added on there, and that is going to have links to all of our travel equipment. A lot of people have been asking what kind of bags we use, what equipment, anything for our electronics. You can find it all linked on there, and I'm really excited about all of that. All right, so purposeodyssey.com. I hope to see y'all there. So then I'm going to backtrack just a little bit, and I wanted to ask, what exactly was it that got you into, I guess, studying spirituality? Was there like a defining moment?
Yes, definitely after my depression, my burnout, where I was already suffering for nearly 10 years of IBS.
Wow.
and there was no solution. So I
Yeah.
would keep going to the doctors and different specialists, and they still don't know, I think, where it comes from.
Really?
Well, they claim not to really know where it comes from,
Yeah.
and so I knew, somehow I knew that I can heal myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I did speak to my doctor and said, look, therapy is not helping me. You know, it doesn't give me anything apart from I'm being stressed out, needing to talk about something I'm not ready for, right?
They did mental therapy for
Yeah.
IBS. I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then so I said, look, I want to come off the medication. I want to stop therapy and find my own way. And my GP was really good. He was very open to this kind of alternative healing.
Yeah.
And he said, like, look, I trust you, you know, and I know if you need help, you come back to me anyway.
Yeah.
But he's basically, you know, supported me in that. But also at the same time, what happened is I did start a new contract at the bank, and there was a new lady joining, and she looked at me and go like, "Oh, you one of us," and I go like, "What you mean?" And she goes like, "Well, let's go for lunch. I will explain."
Yeah.
And then I don't know, few days later we met up for lunch, and I said, "Okay, explain that, please."
Yeah.
And she said like, well, I can see future. So she's like, I get premonitions when I look at you. I know what could happen in the next few days to you. And I was like, okay, that's weird.
Yeah. What?
It's like, and she's like, yeah, she was born with it. So
Yeah.
she would see like entities as well. Her mom would like, you know, look out of so it was running in her family already. So her mom would look out of the kitchen windows like, oh, these kids playing out there, and there were no kids. Right?
Yeah.
And so she was able to see those entities as the souls hanging around,
Yeah.
having passed on, but didn't go to the light, back to the light, right? The light source. So she said like, you got this gift or ability to actually receive things from the universe too. And then she gave me a card deck, the Rider-Waite deck, and said, look, start with those. And I was like, what am I going to do with those? It's like, you figure it out.
What?
I was like, okay, whatever.
You were literally like chosen.
Yeah, so I just went on internet and started to read about, you know, different combinations of the cards, but it didn't make very much sense to me because there's a million different card combinations you can have, and to find an explanation to this was impossible, right? So the next thing was like, okay, on YouTube you find anything, right?
Yeah.
So I started to look, you know, follow like card readers on internet, on YouTube, and there was a few that stood out to me, and they called it the intuitive reading
Oh yeah.
rather than, you know, according to this, you know, systems.
Yeah.
And I love that. So, and the one thing that this one lady said was like, you need to get aligned with the cards you have. So your energy needs to merge with the energy of the cards, because a certain cards can mean something different to you than it means to me, right? So when I read someone with my cards, I have clear knowing of what certain card means. But let's say if you would have a card deck and I would take your card deck, it would be your energy in there.
Interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's just energy again. So I started to just, you know, more fun, read for my niece. She was really like, oh, yes, auntie, please read. And it
That
was,
would be me.
it was so interesting. So this one case, she met this guy online, and she wanted to know what connection that was for her, right? And I pulled the cards, and she told me literally, I said nearly word by word, repeated based on the cards I pulled, the conversation they had the day before online, nearly
What?
word by word.
That is so strange.
And I go like, are you sure? And she's like, yes, auntie. This is exactly what he told me. And then a girlfriend of mine, she called me. I was like, oh, I met this guy on Tinder. And we were like, what you think?
Yeah.
So I pulled cards. And I said like, well, this is what I see in the cards. And she goes like, oh my God. This is exactly what he said to me yesterday. I was like, are you sure? Because I felt like I made this thing up, right? I really felt that way. Yeah. But it's not you make this thing up. It's basically you read the energy. So the way it works for me, so that was the beginning what I realized. Like I receive the energy through feeling and emotion, which then goes through my heart, where I validate it with my heart, and then it goes up to my throat chakra, and then I can speak it. So, but the validation happens through my heart. Okay. Always. Yeah. So when I have like this moment of, I need to, so when I look at cards and need a moment, it's more that I need to validate it. It's like, okay, what is it? What is my heart saying to me right now about these different cards I see right now? Yeah. So that's the best way to explain what I do when I read cards. But at this point, I don't need cards anymore. So it's more about the cards help the person I read for to see pictures. Interesting. Which helps more for them to understand. Yeah. But I wouldn't need the cards anymore.
I mean, you read us right when we walked. Yeah, right when, I don't remember what it was, but it was like right when we walked in, you said, oh, no, it was later on you told us that you felt our energy, and then you ended up doing a card reading, and it was exactly what you said, which is crazy. Yeah. Yeah. No, that was awesome.
So basically, I realized that actually spirituality is nothing more or nothing less being your authentic self.
Interesting.
That's what's because when we say the universe or God experience itself through us, it's the authentic way to be and to see the connection to the source or to the universe or God, whatever you want to call it. For me, it's all the same. Yeah. It depends on which angle you take. So a religious person would say it's God. A scientific person would call it universe, right? And then the spiritual people call it the divine. Yes. Whatever it means, right? But it's all the same. Yeah. It's all the same. Interesting. Yeah. So that helped me really to find out, who am I truly at my core, and what was I suppressing? And because I was suppressing the authentic self, I was suffering. And based on that suffering, which was caused by negative thoughts, and now you digest your thoughts, and it uses the same system as food would go through. So every time I had these negative thoughts that went through my system, it would just mess it all up. So a lot of foods I couldn't eat anymore. I would get like really stomach aches, and if the stomach ache wasn't there, then I was having the diarrhea. It's like really 30 minutes after I ate, I had to run to the bathroom.
Seriously, yes. 30 minutes?
30 minutes.
That's horrible.
So, and then at some point, I felt like not eating anymore because I was just scared, right? So when I started to turn that self-talk, negative self-talk into positive, or at least I acknowledged it's being negative, realizing it's been negative, and slowly turn it into something positive, I was fine.
That's insane.
I was fine.
That's crazy.
I mean, so things like I couldn't eat meat for a long time, gluten, all kind of sugars, whether it was healthy sugars or not.
That's a lot.
Yes, and so everything was just not, agreeing with me, with my body, because it was already, my system was already preconceived with digesting my thought process, and the food was too much on top.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we have a few friends that we've lived and worked with that have IBS, and they have to stick to such a strict diet. Like, no garlic, no onion. If it's you, you know who I'm talking to. I know he watches this podcast religiously, but we would have to pull over the car right away all the time. And it really, until you live someone that is dealing with that, it runs their life almost, because you have to time everything perfectly.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's crazy that it can be just your thoughts. And then it's kind of related, but I have relatives that have Crohn's disease, and they have to take like these tens of thousands of dollars of shots like once, twice a week. And so I don't know if do you think it could have the same kind of effects, or like, do you think it could also be just the self-talk and everything like that?
Well, there's always two components to it. So I just know from the American water system that it's just bad.
The American water system?
Yes. So
Okay.
they do a lot of stuff to the American water system.
Yes, they do.
And basically it's full of parasites, which then cause the infections in your bowels, and so I would recommend to really cleanse your body, which you can do with castor oil and coconut oil.
Okay. And is it just digesting those oils, or can you also...
So castor oil is very aggressive, so
Okay.
it would really empty you out. So if you want a softer version of it, so then just put it on your stomach
Okay.
area. That helps already. Or make a foot bath with baking soda and castor oil and lukewarm water, and stick your feet in for like 20-30 minutes. And well, that's gross now, but you will see the parasites in the water.
Seriously?
It pulls it out of your body. Yes.
I'm sorry. For those that are close to me, you know how afraid I am of parasites, but also how much I feel like we must all have parasites, but I'm so afraid to do the cleanses because I don't want to see it.
So one thing one symptom which can confirm that you got parasites is, let's say, if you don't eat for a while and you get a headache, right? So people will say like, oh, I'm fasting now to cleanse the body, will experience headache, and this is caused by the parasite pissing into your system. And that actually, this acid is causing your headache.
Stop.
Yes.
I thought that was just because you were hungry that
No.
you get... No!
It's actually the piss of the parasite.
No! This is like my genuine reaction. Oh my god, okay.
Yeah, I know, it's
So
hard.
that's fantastic. Okay.
Yeah.
So then when you're fasting and you're healthy, you really shouldn't be getting like headaches or anything like that.
No. So the thing is really then to get, so that's the sign that you got parasites in your bowels, and so it's really the cleanse that gets. So you
Okay.
can do fast. So fasting is a good cleanse,
Okay.
but you suffer from headache.
I was going to say, I would turn into a horrible human being. I would have to do it alone. Zach would suffer more than I would suffer, I think. That would be bad.
Yeah.
Okay.
But this is something you have to go through, right? It's like,
Yeah.
but also it's like when you do the castor oil on your belly, it's like it comes through your system.
Okay.
Don't look into the toilet.
Okay. That's
So,
honestly, but I feel
yeah.
like, oh my god. Okay, so I just won't look. That's
No,
another
just
thing.
don't look.
Okay.
But usually, if you have a slight diarrhea, that's also a sign that constantly a slight diarrhea. That's also a sign of parasites.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Okay. So you can just do it. But okay. So the water is a huge problem. Is that just with the drinking water, or you were saying it's also with bathing it can go through?
Yeah. So basically, if you don't filter your shower or bathing water, the parasites go through your skin. So it would be best to really have those filters installed in America.
Okay.
So filter all the water you use.
Okay.
It's for whether you cook. So you don't. Usually, when you say like, okay, I boil the water, it gets rid of most of the bacteria, but not the parasites.
Really?
No.
Oh, I thought it got rid of the parasites.
No, it's not enough. No.
So we're doomed.
Yeah.
So, okay, that's good to know. That's very good to know. So when they say that they put, well, I'm guessing this is already bad, but like chlorine and everything in your water, that doesn't kill, well, I don't know what they're putting in our water anymore in the United States, but
It's a lot of things.
Yeah, it's a lot of things, but it's not. It's
they
not
claim it
parasites.
to clean the water,
Yeah.
but what it does, it's actually making you dependent on the chemicals they put in, right?
Yeah.
And it does a lot of things. So fluoride, for instance, they say, oh, it's good for your teeth. It's not.
I don't understand why they care that much either. Like, why all of a sudden do they care about our teeth that much? That they're putting it in our water.
So imagine it's everything's connected. So basically, it's the dentists who are connected to the pharma industry, then come up with the medication to kind of make your teeth better, but it makes our body dependent on those different chemicals, right?
Okay.
Instead of the body healing itself again.
Okay.
Because whether it's teeth, whether it's anything in your physical body, we can heal ourselves.
But instead it's making us dependent on big pharma.
Exactly.
Which is the capitalistic. Perfect.
Yes.
Okay.
It's always follow the money.
Yeah.
It's really follow the money.
Well, no, that's just interesting. This is interesting timing, because one of the main reasons that I took a huge break from the podcast for the past couple weeks is I ended up quitting the medication that I've been on for the past year and I don't know, a little over a year now. And it was just anxiety medication and ADHD medication, which I have become completely dependent on in terms of doing work. And it was one of the hardest things I have done, was just cleansing that out of my body and having any motivation for life. But I feel so much more like myself again. I guess just mental health in general in the United States. And of course, I think it's super important, but I don't feel like we're being given the right resources at all to deal with it. I'm really glad that we're talking about it more. But the fact that we're all just being given medication, like I was on amphetamine salts, and I was on 3 separate things: buspirone, bupropion, and amphetamine salts, all just to get my brain like in what society deems the most productive, I guess. Do you have any advice for people dealing with ADHD symptoms that are not reliant on medication?
So, I mean, the one thing I think it helps in many ways is meditation, right?
Yeah.
So that can help you the aspect of focus, right? How do I focus? But also to understand ADD is a coping mechanism.
Okay.
It's not a disease. I would even go that far that there's no such thing as a mental illness. It's a coping mechanism based on the circumstances and the environment you grew up in. So basically, physical, like go out, walk, go out to sports, swim. I mean, ocean is perfect for healing, because in the oceans we have with the sea salt, is a very high frequency, and usually mental illnesses come from the fact that the frequency is too low, right? So the thing is, what our soul wants to do is, if you have a diagram, right, and see like up here is your soul, and down here is your 3D version, right? And life purpose in that sense is to find your way up to the frequency of your soul. So the mental illness comes in when the pressure is too much and you keep down here instead of ascending up in frequency. So basically, it's anything that gives you joy can help you actually to come up, really raise your frequency up, right? Yeah. So, but also it's to laugh, humor. Yeah. Very important, high frequency, and be compassionate. Yeah. Right, very high frequency. So do something for someone else instead of doing it for yourself, right? But the perfect balance will be that you do something that helps you but also helps other people, because being selfless is not high frequency. Suffering is not what we're supposed to do in life. So whatever a religion tells you, like, oh, you need to suffer, you surrender, and all this, nice words they use, it's not what we're here to do. No. It's find your highest frequency in doing what you feel joyful, makes you feel happy, and physical physical movement is very important.
Okay.
So yeah, and that you can overcome mental illness.
That's interesting. Yeah, I guess when I am going to the gym and everything like that, I was so much more better. It's crazy how much
Right?
you're... Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. No, that's... Okay. Thank you for answering that.
And I mean, the thing is, I'm not saying there's certain moments or situations or physical cases where I agree with, taking medication in order to, stabilize, right? But after that, you need to get off the medication and replace it with good diet, right? With healthy products, non-processed food, no carb. Well, it would be best not to have too much carb in your diet anyway, because that turns into sugar. Any carb that you take in, it turns into sugar. Okay. And if you want to eat carb, make sure that you eat green stuff before, because that's harder to break down. So while you eat greens first and then carbs afterwards, your body is busy with working through the green, and so the carbs cannot be turned into sugar that quick.
Interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
So if you go to the Mediterranean area in Europe, they always eat greens first, and then the carbs and the meat, the protein comes afterwards.
Okay.
But it's the green stuff that it really keeps you healthy.
Okay. So then how, this is such a specific question, how do you feel about a keto diet then?
The thing is, and again, everybody is different.
Yeah.
So keto is actually, I believe, healthier than being vegan.
Interesting. Okay.
Because protein is very important.
Yeah.
Right? It helps a lot of different chemical processes in our body which are important. So I would rather sign up for a keto diet than a vegan diet, because if you look at vegan, they have a lot of supplements they take in order to compensate the lack of protein.
Yeah.
And here again I say, whatever is man-made is processed.
Yeah. 100%.
And whatever is processed is not good for your body. So I would always say to take a balanced diet would be really protein, having the good carbs, like not like wheat. It's bad. So I would rather go for cornmeal or like rye instead of wheat.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
But having everything.
Yeah.
And I totally believe that the more color you see on a plate, the better the diet is.
Yeah, that's a simple way
right.
to look at it. Yeah.
If you have all looking beige, that's definitely not good.
But it's common, especially in the United States.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I saw that and I was quite shocked of how much carb.
Was that crazy to come into the United States?
Oh,
and
yes.
Was it a big... I don't know how the diet is in Switzerland, so I don't know what the comparison is. But could you feel it yourself, just not feeling well after eating that diet?
Yes.
Yeah.
I felt crap.
Yeah.
I felt like crap. And, even in Switzerland, I bake my own bread. I don't like to buy bread.
It's not that hard. When I first started doing it, I'm just like, why did we lose this?
Right?
There's so much that it's we were just taught to just, I don't know, just put everything in a cart and then it's easier for you. But it's just, we lost the art of food. And it's so, it's almost therapeutic to be cooking that kind of stuff.
It's therapeutic, and also, if you do it with joy, you create food with high frequency.
That reminds me. I was going to ask you, because you were talking about veganism or vegetarian, and a lot of people would argue, especially because of, I don't know how it is around the world, but the way that the meat factories are in the United States and how animals are raised, do you feel like we are absorbing those frequencies of the negativity?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So if you think, so what you can, and that sounds funny that I say that because I don't like religion, but in Christianity, the prayer before, speaking grace before you start your food is actually the right thing to do.
Mm.
It's show gratitude, right? Gratitude has a high frequency too. So if you bless the food, it's actually good for you.
Yeah.
But also, let's say, because we don't know where the meat comes from and how these animals were treated, but thanking that soul for being, and giving you that meal now also can change the frequency of the meat you eat.
Okay.
Just being showing gratitude to that animal that lost its life for you having a steak can change the frequency.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Well, thank you for that explanation.
Well, try it. I mean, I didn't believe in it, but when I
No.
started doing that, also helped my IBS.
Interesting.
When I started, speaking grace and being grateful and thankful for, the food I have today, did change the frequency and helped my digestion a lot.
Yeah, and I mean, you see that all around the world. Like, even when I was in Peru, I think they called it, I don't want to butcher this, Pachamama? I hope I'm saying, but it was, instead of giving thanks to like a god, it was Mother Earth every time they would eat. Yeah. And isn't like gratefulness one of the highest like frequencies you can
It
be?
is, yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because I don't remember who I was talking to, but just like the power of just having one like grateful exercise every day. When I'm not doing that, I just feel like, I don't know, that when I'm going through my worst phases in life, I recognize how much I was not being grateful for. Yes, but right when you start implementing that, it's crazy the difference it can make. It's
the little things. It doesn't take a lot.
No,
That's
it's
the
not.
thing.
Yeah.
People think like, oh my God, my whole life's going to be changed. No. How much time does it take you just to be grateful for a moment?
Yeah, just thinking about what you have.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, you can do that sitting on a toilet.
Literally anytime. You don't have to have a journal. Although I like the journal, like just taking little moments when you find yourself being still.
Yeah.
Which try to be still once in a while. That's also an issue. But yeah, that makes a huge, huge difference. So someone that's starting out with getting in touch with their spirituality, what do you think would be one of the first steps or one of the first exercises that they could be doing?
Ask yourself a lot of questions.
Okay.
So for me, it was starting like, okay, why am I here? Right? What could be the meaning of life? And there's no right or wrong answer, because everyone has a different answer. Like everyone has a different life purpose.
Yeah.
Everyone has a different passion. But I think a lot of people make this big thing out of spirituality, and it's very simple. It's actually very simple. It's about finding your passion and share it.
Interesting.
That's it.
Yeah.
So ask yourself, what am I passionate about? Right?
Yeah.
What brings me joy in life? And then share that with someone. It can be, with just one person. It doesn't have to be with a crowd, right? Not everyone has to be this guru standing in front of thousands of people. That's when we come to Judgment Day, and I do believe we have a Judgment Day, no one's asking how many people you brought along. It's all about, were you authentic? And if it's just one person you help, that's all it takes.
Yeah. So So even though you don't go with like religion, you don't really identify with a religion, you still think there's a Judgment Day?
There is a Judgment Day.
What do you mean by that?
My higher self judging me.
Interesting.
Because there was a plan we agreed on.
Yeah.
Like what I call a soul plan.
Yeah.
Soul contracts.
Yeah.
And you go through these points where you go like, okay, achieved, failed. And then you come to a conclusion like, okay, the next life, which areas are going to go through again? Because I failed those parts.
That's much less pressure, though. When you're thinking of it being your higher self, I'm thinking there's going to be a panel in front of me and everything like that. So that's a lot. I feel like even that itself can just like ease a lot of the pressure of spirituality.
Well, I mean, from a religious point, if there is a God, right?
Yeah.
And he loves you unconditionally, Why should he judge you?
That's what I've never understood about religion, and also what just displaced me from the whole thing in the first place. It just never made any sense to me.
And who are they to say, okay, I put the Pope in front of you and he can, he's there to judge you? No.
Yeah.
No one's supposed to judge you.
Mm-hmm.
It's really, so I believe it's going to be my higher self. It's me against my, standing in front of the mirror, saying, okay, what are the points that I missed? And why did I miss them, right? And then have this conclusion going, okay, I've done this, I've achieved this, I've went through this process, but I missed out on this one and this one and this one. So how can I create a new plan I can catch up with these points in my next lifetime?
So you believe if you fail, like a couple things, you think you revise and then come back to like a human life?
Yes.
But at the same time, it's not like a past or future, it's all at the same time.
Yeah, that's with time being special, right? Time does not exist in the big picture of the universe.
Okay.
Time was created on Earth to keep us trapped. That's again a controlling thing, right? So basically, what happens is that we live all lives at the same time, but we choose to focus on one lifetime, and that's what you are aware of right now.
Oh, sorry, that just like clicked in my brain. It's never made sense to me because so the consciousness is what you're choosing to become.
Yes, exactly. So the consciousness is creating what you experience right now.
Okay.
Because it chose to experience this right now.
Yes.
But you could shift as well. So through meditations, for instance, you can do astral traveling where you take your conscious energetic body. So the physical is not conscious.
No.
What makes it conscious is the energy of your consciousness from your soul being in this vessel. But you can take that part out of this vessel and go into another lifetime.
This might be a dumb question then. But then, so are some people walking around with no consciousness? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Ah!
Yes.
Wait, that's so interesting.
Well, these are like comparable, like with a video game, like the NPCs, the non-playable characters. They have no conscious, as in like they have no soul that is aware that it's here.
That's wild.
Right?
That is wild, yeah.
And that's where the theory comes from. We live in a simulation, like in a video game, where you can choose. It's like, imagine, so your higher self will be the one having the controller and playing a certain character in that game. But that character in the game is not aware that someone's actually guiding, playing that role right now.
Yes.
But the moment of an awakening means that you are all of a sudden conscious that it's you playing that character in that game right now, which is your current life. So your higher self is guiding you in this lifetime.
Okay.
Right.
That answers a lot of my questions. That's wild. Sorry, my brain like clicked in the middle of that. I was what? Okay. So back to the original question, one of the best things first is to start asking yourself questions.
Yes.
And then you mentioned meditation is also a good starting point.
Yes, meditation will always open your consciousness. It's going to open it and expand it.
Okay.
That's what it does.
Yeah. Yeah, even just for me, it was just one of the best things to make me feel present again.
Right.
I feel like my brain was just always on autopilot, or it was like racing thoughts all the time. It felt like I would tell my therapist, it felt like my brain was a big scribble up there. Like there was always something happening. And then meditation, when I first started, it was the first time I just like watched it in a way without judgment. And it was just such a strange experience. But then being able to be more present, it helps so much with just that kind of stuff, like organizing yourself and letting yourself be still for a second.
And also what I say, those that are diagnosed with ADD and all those new forms of mental illnesses, whatever, is to see it's not it's not something that, again, it's not an illness.
Yeah.
It's a coping mechanism, but also to understand that if you have all these thoughts coming in, that you're very connected to the source, which is actually something good.
Really?
Yes.
Wait, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I have so much.
it's like I always say, when we're born and forget everything is because of those filters, right? And for instance, you just were born or chose to be born with less filters. That's why all these things come in.
Yeah.
And all you need is a coping mechanism to deal with that. So there's nothing wrong with you. It's just you chose to be that way.
When you say coping mechanism, are you saying, like, when we talked about ADD and ADHD, you called that a coping mechanism?
Yes.
So is that what you're referring to?
Yes.
Okay. And it's funny because when we're talking about, like, mental illnesses, I had gone to, like, multiple therapists, and they all diagnosed me with something different. I had bipolar. I had, like, what was the other one? Borderline personality disorder, ADHD. And it's just like, when you look at it, it all overlaps so much. And it was just like, no matter who I talked to, it was something different. It's just interesting looking into that a little bit, how much it overlaps. Yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, just coping mechanisms. I like to ask this to a lot of my guests, but if you were to be your teenage self again, but be able to see what you're doing now, how do you think she would feel?
I think she would be actually very happy.
Yeah.
Because when I look back as a teenager, I was so... Every teenager is confused.
Oh,
right?
so confused. I was so lost.
Right,
Yeah.
totally lost.
Yeah.
But also to know that you don't have... So whatever job or career you choose, it's not going to be for the rest of your life. Because I think that's what makes someone panicking, a young person panicking. How am I supposed to choose something that I know now I'm going to be happy for the rest of my... It's not possible.
It put me in, like, freeze mode.
Right?
Whole, like, even throughout high school, I was just like, I don't know how I'm ever going to choose. Like, there's no right option.
So I would be very happy to know as a teenager that whatever choice I make as a teenager doesn't, impact the rest of my life.
That's an important message. I feel like I still don't even understand that, because I still get frozen in terms of career choices, because I'm like, I don't know if I can do it for the rest of my life, but you don't have to. When it stops working for you, you stop, and then you move on. I almost feel like it's, like, better to be able to experience different careers. Yeah, it gives you more experience. I feel like it slows life down. As you know, I always say that in the podcast, like, new experiences seem to just slow life down and slow time down. So of course it's going to be good if you get to try a new career.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we often think that if we got on a path and we don't keep following that path, that we failed. But I always call it is a misalignment, right? So you can vibe with something for a long time and the frequency is perfectly for the time. But when you start feeling like this, it's in your gut, like something's wrong, and I don't feel happy, and I can't put the finger on it. It's all what it is you don't align with that frequency anymore, and all you do is realign yourself. So for me, I don't think there is a failure.
No.
It is misalignment, and that happens all the time because you grow. Right. It's like a little child growing out of their shoes all the time. It's not because the child fails. No. It keeps growing. Right. And that's what we're here for, is growing, constantly growing our consciousness, expanding it. Right.
Even just changing your mind. Like, I've had people that are older than me. Shout out Dad. I'm just gonna call you. Where he was 53 at the time, and he has a lot of strong opinions, which is okay. And I remember we were out to eat, and I had said something that finally, like, just slightly changed his mind. You could see it, and he was like, "Oh, whoa!" But then he was just like, you know what? I'm already 53 years old. I cannot change my mind on these things. I am the way I am. But that's the kind of person he is. But I'm like, I just hope people realize, like, changing your mind is totally okay. And it's like, it's a whole, it says a lot about your character, being able to be like, hey, like, I was wrong about that yesterday. Like, I learned this, you know? It's like totally okay to change your mind on all types of things. And political everything. I've always, I don't know. I feel like we put such an emphasis on being right, but it's okay.
I think so the energy, I think, is more like change. If someone can't change their mind, it's usually because it wasn't actually their opinion, and they took on an opinion, and now they feel like they betrayed themselves throughout that time, believing in something, right?
Yeah.
So it's often not that they can't change their mind. It's more like they can't admit to themselves that they believed in something that wasn't actually the thing they wanted to believe in.
Interesting. Like, it was almost like a waste of their time to, like, identify with that. That's, like, thinking back to times that I felt that way, because I'm not saying I don't get that way. Like, of course I've been like, no. Like, but that's the feeling that I felt. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
But also, I mean, if you don't change your mind, then that means you don't grow.
Yeah.
Right?
100%.
I
And
think
you're never done.
Changing your mind is actually a good thing. It's not a bad thing at all.
Of course not. At any age, it does
Exactly.
not matter. And just a reminder that 50 is not old. Like, I don't know why I keep hearing this lately, but I have like a lot of listeners within their 50s and 60s. And I've just gotten messages like, I wish I would have figured this out when I was your age, like, but kudos to you. And I'm like, no, like, you're figuring it out at the right time. Like, it's just your time now. It's just a different scale than me, you know?
Again, it's like time is, it's not really existing.
Yeah.
So basically, you always figured something out when it's the right time.
Yeah.
And when you plan to do. So again, soul plan, right?
Yeah.
It's you actually, your soul makes that plan and then gives you different timings in your lifetime to come to that conclusion. So if it's not happening the first time, then there's a path leading you back to that same moment, just slightly different, but where you can say like, okay, now I change it, right?
Yeah.
And if you choose not to change it in that new moment, then your soul has another plan to say, okay, then maybe 5 years down, I create that similar situation again, where you have this opportunity to change. But it's not it's not meant like, again, as a failure, but it gives you always the opportunity again and again and again to change your mind about something.
Yeah.
Right? Gaining new wisdom or gaining more knowledge, maybe that helps you change your mind. And then if that's not enough, then it'll give you more time. So more time to gather knowledge, more time to gather wisdom again, than to come to the next situation where you have the opportunity to maybe change now.
Yeah.
Right? And if you think 50 years, that is old, if you go with that idea of people turn approximately 80, between 80 and 90 years, right? So someone will say, okay, I'm 50, I have another 30 years to live. That's less than half my lifetime.
That's the narrative I
right?
always hear, yeah.
And so we need to forget about the age thing, right? It's like, again, you never know when you die, right? Yeah. And that's also planned that way, because you wouldn't have an authentic experience if you would know when you die, right? So the experience needs to be authentic. That's why we forget certain things. But you will see people getting older and older. And I always said that I know I'll be 150.
What?
Yes, I just know it must.
You're going to be 150?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
So basically, I've just done 1/3 of my life.
All right.
So why should that be too late?
No.
It's not.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm not, well, I might not turn 150, but I think it's better to think I got enough time left than rather be under that pressure of, oh, I'm going to die soon.
Yeah.
Right. It's again this, make it positive or make it negative.
Yeah, 100%. That's a good way to think about it. My mom always says, she's like, no, I'm living to 100, no doubt. Like, but even that, it just feels like too, I don't know. So I think I like the 150. That's very good. I like it. And then I ask everybody this because it is called the Purpose Odyssey. And the reason why I started the podcast was because I've been wondering my entire life, since I developed a consciousness, if life itself had a purpose, if each individual had their own purpose. So I want to ask you, in general, do you feel life has a purpose?
Yes. Definitely. To find your authenticity.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And through that, you actually will create so you will expand your consciousness through creation, and the creation can be on any level. So creating, let's say me creating my healing center is one, that's my purpose. But for you, maybe it's like having this podcast and bring experiences to an audience that can help them to find their purpose again, right, through any kind of situations that are presented in your podcast, right? And but also the expansion is very important, right? Because if you don't expand, then your soul cannot ascend higher. So we have the ascension here on earth in this physical body, but also we have an ascension on soul level. So you will push through your purpose, and reasoning of your life will push your soul upwards again too. So that goes in line with each other. So it's really express through creation for expansion.
I feel like it's always, at least for me, I felt like my career had to be completely my purpose. But is it for some people, it's their career is just on the side while pursuing their own purpose, if that makes sense?
I think that the one indication I would say is the person happy with what they do.
Okay. Yeah.
And if they're happy in their career, then it's their purpose.
Yeah.
If their career doesn't make them happy, then it's not their purpose.
Yeah.
That's what I experienced, right? So
Got it.
I think it's the and do you like getting up in the morning and do what you do? And if you don't like it, then it's not your purpose.
Yeah. You spend so much time at your job, and I think that's what frustrated me so much growing up, seeing like parents or relatives just hate spending their time at work and then having to do it every day. I've never understood how we just accepted that. Like, that's a lot of your time, if not most of your time, outside of sleeping.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's just always something that probably drove me too, to just kind of look into that. It's just, even without the whole soul purpose, it's like, that's all your time, dude. Like, if you're not into spirituality, like, at least enjoy what you have,
Yeah, it's really that one thing. Do you enjoy what you do?
Yeah.
And then your career can be your purpose, but also, again, the whole system will change. So we are at the
You think?
Yes.
Okay.
So
Thank God.
it can stand up for much longer, because look at the state of our world. It's horrible. Right?
It is.
So why would we want to keep up something that's horrible?
No.
Right?
Do you think it's going to change soon, like within our lifetime?
Yes.
You think we're
for
like
sure.
right on?
It's the verge, like really. I mean, that's why you hear like, banking system falling, all governments are struggling, people are, are standing up for themselves. It's that. But I'm saying it's not about a revolution anymore. It's about evolution. So we don't revolve. We should not repeat again. Revolution always means repeating something in a different fashion.
Okay.
But we should evolve. So really see certain certain jobs will disappear, and new jobs will be created. Like the whole healing, like the medical field will be obsolete.
Well, it's gotten out of hand.
Right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, medbeds are reality, and there's different companies that are working on medbeds.
Medbeds?
Yeah.
What is that?
So medbeds is really, so in science fiction movie.
Yeah.
And these are actually more documentaries than movies.
Okay.
So you see those complicated kind of beds where they put in the bodies and
Yes.
then they scan.
Yeah.
And so they do exist.
Okay.
So but they don't heal you. They actually, again, activate your DNA to heal yourself.
Interesting.
And what it means is it accesses your astral body, which is always perfect, which has no illness and no diseases, and it takes that DNA from your astral being into that physical being, and then you start healing.
I did not know that this
so
was
there is no medical aspect anymore required, and actually we can even regrow limbs.
What?
Yeah, so amputation is is actually not a thing. It's created again by this medical system, because if we would have these med beds, you would put this body into the med bed and it would heal itself.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you think this is this shift something that we have to consciously do, or is it just
You have to
going
choose
to
it.
So the collective has to choose
Yes,
it?
the
How the heck do we get everyone? That's always been my fear, is people just simply will not. My fear is that everyone is just going to keep believing that we're going down, and we're just going to keep manifesting this downward spiral, if that makes sense. How is it possible that the collective is going to start making that evolution?
So the thing is, one soul that chooses to change can affect thousands of souls just with that energy of I choose to change now. I choose to focus on the good thing. I mean, it's like, if you have a group of people and there's one negative person in that group, it can take down the whole vibe of the group.
100%.
Right?
Yeah.
But the same thing can happen with someone very positive going in a negative group, and with their positive energy to change the whole collective, right?
Yeah.
So it doesn't require that many to actually influence the collective, and that's the part where, again, the system counts on and keeps instilling the fear of, we're going all down, but not realizing that it takes very few souls to change that collective belief. So, and also if you start not looking on, we're going down. So, for instance, I never experienced something negative throughout the whole COVID phase.
Really?
No, because I chose not to see the negative.
Yeah.
Right? And so all of a sudden, I did have people around me that started believing that the vaccine was bad and insisted on not getting vaccinated. I didn't cross path with other people.
Yeah.
Because I chose not to look on that. I look somewhere totally different. And that's exactly what you do with your consciousness. It's like, if I choose the positive, you will attract these people who are willing to believe in the similar things that you do.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that makes me feel a little bit better about it.
Yeah. And it really doesn't take a lot.
I feel like that's the pressure with a lot of things. Any kind of hope for change, I feel like it's just always this feeling I can't change everybody's mind, so you just kind of give up, I remember feeling that way when I was a kid, but that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and we should never try to change someone's mind, because
that's very true.
That's so draining.
It
so
is.
just do your
100%.
thing, and people who chooses the people who choose to see also the positive will then come into your vicinity.
Yeah. Okay.
And then that gives you more hope, and with the more hope then you can attract more people, mind-like people.
So I think that wraps up the episode. Thank you for taking the time to do this with me.
Well, it was a pleasure. I have fun.
Yeah, I had a very good time. I've had a great 3 weeks with you. Zach got a lovely healing massage from you. He said he felt like he was vibrating after. And then you did a lovely tarot card reading for me that definitely made me feel a lot better about a lot of things going on. So I appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah, of course. If anybody wants to find you, is there a way for them to contact you to work with you?
Yeah, so I'm just using an email address. I'm very old fashioned.
That's okay.
So that would be joobum72@gmail.com.
Okay, and I can put that in the description too if you didn't catch that. I'll put that down there if you ever want to work with her.
Yeah, so I do Zoom sessions too, where I do shadow works, getting parts of you out which you're not aware, but subconsciously define your actions in many ways.
Yeah.
So it helps you to understand yourself better.
Yeah.
And that again brings you on the path of purpose. And yes, if you want to find your mission, that's a good way to go about it. So yeah, you can reach me there.
Cool.
And then we can see.
Yeah. All right, cool. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
And that concludes our episode. I can't thank Joo enough for everything that we got to experience with her, not only the podcast, but the 3 weeks we got to spend with her. It was really transformative, and all of the other people that we got to work with. It's been a really good experience. So we are now leaving Colombia. As you may be able to tell, I am currently in a hotel room, and we head for the airport early in the morning tomorrow, and we're going to a new country. And I'm not going to say yet, but for a hint, most of you may know already, but we are going to be somewhere that I've already been. Zach has not, but I have already been there. I spent a little bit of time there when I was 18 years old, and I'm really excited to do it over again with a different mindset and some of the same people, actually. I'm really excited. So tune in then. We will have some interesting content both on YouTube and on the podcast. Thank you for listening, and I will see y'all soon.